We're now joined by one of our own, Barry O'Donnell, who is a spokesman for
a disabled persons organisation called VVI. So we're VVI. Voice of Vision Impairment. All our members will be blind or partially sighted. And over the last couple of months, the deposit refund scheme has happened. So it's affecting everyone, not just people with disabilities.
Yeah. Because we were saying at the top of the show, when these major changes are introduced, sometimes it's kind of rushed through and passed through, and it's not consulted with a diverse group of people for meeting everybody's needs, not just, one mould.
And it's just rushed through for the sake of being rushed through, just to get it out as quick as you can without consulting anyone.
Yeah, it's only back in the 80s. I grew up in the 70s, the 80s myself. We had our own very popular glass bottle deposit refund scheme. We got 5 pence or 10 pence back, so you didn't throw bottles in the bin. Yeah. You made sure you got your 10, because 10p was a lot of money back in the 80s. So yeah, it is all about consultation. So there was a soft launch, as I would call it, by Oisin Ryan. He's the Minister for the Circular Economy from the Green Party back in November 2022, and there was a bit of a lead-in. So there's about a 14-month lead-in, and the scheme commenced in the Republic of Ireland on the 1st of February this year. And as a member of Voice of Vision Impairment, I always like to reach out to organisations in advance to make sure they've considered disability or accessibility, and that can benefit everyone, because any one of us can be disabled tomorrow. We can twist our ankle getting off a curb, and we might be disabled for a couple of weeks after that. So my main question was to do with the accessibility of the machines, because in an ever-changing landscape with touch screens, the world is becoming more and more inaccessible to blind people. I still like my buttons.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to be able to see, having used these machines in Germany before, I wanted to see, could you just stick a bottle in? Would it start automatically? And when you've no more bottles to add, would it print the receipt automatically as per the German machines? However, the company who was administering this in the Republic of Ireland, a company called Return, didn't reply to any emails, didn't return any phone calls, and that's usually a bad sign. And although the Minister did acknowledge receipt, unfortunately there was no follow-up. But anyway, the big scheme launched on February the 1st. We found out that about 50% of the machines weren't accessible. Yeah. But you have to find out the hard way.
Yeah.
But there is good news. So the landscape at the minute, there's about 5 different machine providers out there. One company called Tomra, and Tomra are in Dunnes Stores and Aldi. They're accessible. You can put your bottles in, as many as you want, and your cans. Wait 30 seconds, your receipt prints out. A second company is called RVM. RVM have machines in Lidl, Centra and Supervalu. And their machines had an issue in Centra and Supervalu initially, but worked in Lidl. So we gave them feedback, and fair play to them. They fixed the problem within a week. They rolled out new settings. Other companies, a company called CLAF, they're a German company, and they supply the machines to Tesco. They're all accessible as well. And the last 2 companies, one company called Envipco, and they supply machines to Spar, Mace and Londis. Now their machines are accessible, but you have to know where the barcode is. Now, you can be lucky on a 2-litre bottle of water, because you'll know it's the seam. It's where the label joins the other part. You can feel it. But on small little bottles, the thing is, and cans, you haven't a hope. So you have to ask a member of the public to help you use those machines. But if you're lucky enough, if it's a bottle of Pepsi and there's a join on the 2-litre bottle, you can find it. And then finally, there's another company, a company called Ecovend, and they're in Marks and Spencer's, Pepco Deals, and rolling out to other shops in the not too distant future. Their machines are touchscreen only, so you have to press start and you have to press print label. So that's me in trouble.
Well, yeah, even in just the few times I've used it, I've noticed like a few differences between different machines. I wouldn't have done my journalistic due diligence, as you clearly have, on the different brands and makes, but some of them have a little small beeping noise if you put your hand in, and then a visual thing to tell you what you're doing wrong. You're putting your hand in the machine, but I wouldn't have thought about other people and their access to it.
Yeah, so I suppose the other thing as well is, like, the manufacturers do always say you can always go into the shop and the members of staff will be only too willing to help, which they are. It's just the problem in the blind community is most of us haven't been in a shop in about 15 years, because we're using apps, we're using online home deliveries. For people who haven't mastered apps, and it does take years to learn assistive technology, you can still ring up, Duns, you can ring up Supervalu, you can send an email in, and they'll do a home delivery for you. But there's a lot of people, not just people with disabilities, use the home delivery service, because people can't be walking with 5 bags from Supervalu Blanchardstown down to Laurel Lodge.
Of course not.
It's a difficult. You're limited in what you can carry, or else you have to make 7 journeys. And that's why when we did reach out, one of our things was, could Tesco, Duns and Supervalu, who offer a home delivery service in the Dublin 15 area, could they offer a take-back scheme? So the idea is when your groceries are delivered, you give back your empties, cans and bottles, and just like Germany, Riva and Edeka, who have grocery delivery services in Germany, they give you a credit for those bottles and cans later that day. But that wasn't considered in the Republic of Ireland for some reason.
This isn't like a fictitious far-off thing that you're imagining. You know for a fact that this is being done elsewhere, and it can be done.
Yeah, it certainly can be done, and countries like the Netherlands have it. They have it in the US in certain states. It's probably widespread in Europe. It's just with different languages and things like that. I'm not aware of what's the Spanish for deposit refund scheme in Spanish, but I'm sure if I met many people from, say, Belgium and France and other countries, I would find out that they probably have similar take-back schemes, much bigger populations. And, not everyone drives a car. Just from my own experience, and people with other disabilities and just, regular customers aside, my nearest shop would be, say, Spar in Carpenterstown. So when I've got my 8 bottles, I drink a lot of water, 2 litres a day, and I bring 4 bottles in my backpack, 4 in my hand, and have a cane in the other hand. But because it's nearly 1.8 kilometres to the shop, I have to get the bus 4 stops up to the shop. Nothing worse than going into the shop and then telling you, sorry, your machine's out of order.
Absolutely not. That's definitely one of the worst things that can happen. And having witnessed the problem and having noticed that it's going on, what would you say that the government can do to improve it? Because as we mentioned before, it is happening elsewhere and it can be done here.
Yes, so I suppose one little thing I've learned is always phone Spar or phone Centra before you call down to them, or Supervalu. That's a little tip, because then it's not a wasted journey, because particularly when you're going to be doing shopping, they always say, return your bottles, you get your credit, you go in store and somebody will help you shop or you buy your items. But when your bags are already full with empty bottles, you can't do any shopping. But in terms of a tip for the government, the company called Return, who are administering the project, they did eventually come back to us in the middle of February, 2 weeks after the scheme launched.
Even though you've been chasing it since November.
Yeah, of 2022. And they did say they were going to set up a working group within the next 6 months to have a look at this. But, it's all about, it could have been part of the government legislation, maybe it could have been mandatory, but it's all about looking at other countries. Tesco, for example, might say it's a process. Where do they keep their grocery deliveries? They're all compartmentalised into frozen foods, different products and trays. But if they can do it in other countries, just copy them.
They've figured it out already. Yeah. We don't need to start from scratch. One of the things you did mention is for people with visually impaired or blind, struggle finding the code. Like, we were able to get all the cans in the world and put this seal, this stamp on it to tell you that it can be recycled. The fact that Braille or some kind of physical print was overlooked, that must be extremely frustrating.
Well, it is, exactly, because there was no kind of testing done in the background on this. It would have been brilliant if we could have been at it, co-designing at an early stage.
Because they did actually get the print on all these cans. It would have been not that much difficulty you would expect.
And from going into Supervalu in Blanchardstown, I've had a checkout manager who actually mentioned that to me. He says, could I not have put something on the top of the can? Now, I understand the way the system works. Although we have a symbol on it, it's actually linked to the barcode. So the type of Pepsi Cola that you bought in January 2024, that barcode is different to the one that you bought in February 2024. And it does take 3 months for the existing stock to go through the system. So it is a kind of a barcode-based system. So somebody sighted at home or unsighted, you can't tell which one has the symbol or not. You just kind of find out the hard way. But from a period of time, all the new stock that's going through the system will certainly be accessible. But as you said, why wasn't there a little bump, a dot, something to identify where it is? And the other question is, can those two companies, like Envipco or Sensi, who supply the ones to Fresh, should their machines be able to spin around like the others?
Yeah, that's another thing I've noticed.
And actually auto scan, because if Tamra, RVM, if their machines can spin it until it finds the barcode automatically, why can't the others have that in them as well? So hopefully these things can be rolled out. Problem is, can things be retrospectively upgraded, fixed?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
And the discrepancy, like you said there, you missed out on. You weren't able to print it because you were supposed to press the button, but you couldn't find the button.
Yeah. So what happened is in the first week of this, first 2 weeks, I went to Supervalu in Blanchardstown, had 10 bottles, looking forward to getting my 250 back. So I put them all in. Great operation. Scanned the first one. No need to worry about barcodes. Scanned all 10 of them. Waited 30 seconds. No barcode. Then went, oh, okay, I'll wait another minute, give it the benefit of the doubt. By the time I went into the shop, because I haven't been in shops in years, and found somebody, they came out, it was too late. It had stolen my 250. And that's been replicated for countless blind people around the country. But the great thing is, we got onto RVM, the company who supplied them. They said, no, that's not how it should be. Our machines work in Lidl. They upgraded it. Week later, all working. So, it does pay to share your experience.
Yeah.
And companies do listen, and that's good to see.
So there is will to cooperate. It's just something that they didn't see, or they didn't consider initially.
No. And I suppose two other things with most blind and partially sighted people not having been in a shop for years, because it's so easy now. You get it just online, or you can phone in your order, or you get a repeat order. Or there could be a handy little Dunnes stores in North Earl Street, those ones that are on the street that you can walk into. They'll help you buy your items. But one of the problems is when you have all your bottles returned is if you just want your money, your credit, you don't have time to go shopping that day because you're getting home delivery orders. You're not going to be buying more items. It's trying to find counter number one in Aldi or Lidl.
Yeah. Jesus.
And then the problem is you might knock over some flowers en route, and then you go to counter number one and you discover there's 4 trolleys in front of you and you have to wait a half an hour to get your €2 back. So they say, there's a time and a place. Call in early in the morning and things like that. But, we could save all that hassle if we could just give back the empties.
You said you've been following this for a long time and you've clearly spent a huge amount of effort getting this far. Is there any sign of them taking that information on board, doing what you said, the home collection thing? Because that seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, because home collection has really expanded in the last kind of couple of years, particularly during COVID, when people didn't want to go near shops and be in big queues and possibly pick up COVID from being in a queue. So that has grown exponentially, the number of companies offering it, and only recently Dunnes are offering it here from the Blanchardstown Centre, which is a game changer for so many people. But in terms of them taking that on, it seems to be a slow burn. The information I've collected in the last couple of months, that's just a kind of a handbook for the blind community, because everybody is finding out the hard way. They don't know what machines are accessible and which ones are, and most people don't like going into shops and kind of knocking over a stand or Rice Krispie displays by accident. It's just a daunting task when you have a little routine and you've been taught that routine over the years. It's awe-inspiring going into a big shop trying to get your money back. But hopefully the guys will learn, and certainly the information I've collected, I'm going to share it with the blind community. We're going to put it on the Voice of Vision Impairment website. Once it's on that website, I call it, I don't have to rinse and repeat. I don't have to keep saying the story over and over again. It'll get it out there. I have a little kind of a video as well, which I'll put on the article website, which will be kind of the full user experience. With what's it like walking into the shop, finding the vending machine. Some of them are at the entrance, some of them are in the middle of the shop, some of them are in car parks, and some of them can be on the second story of the building, and they're places you don't want to go when you're blind. You don't want to go anywhere near a car park.
And one thing I'm noticing as well, that they're introducing these systems and they're starting to not put them into the legislation, but they're starting to cop on a little bit to realise that there's something not right here. Introducing the systems is well and good, but what these companies, I'm noticing, don't seem to understand is they need to be testing these things before you install them, but then you need to be teaching people how to use them or showing how they're used and testing them before you actually start using them, because then it's just going to be all muddled and confusing.
It is. It's all about co-design, kind of workshops, shops, maybe people going to another country, for a day, trying this out. Who's really going to benefit from us here is Britain. So there's a new system being introduced in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland from October 2025, and hopefully by us sharing our experience in the English language, they'll be able to learn similar lessons to us, and hopefully they'll get it all right, which is what it's all about. But sometimes, when they introduce these systems, it's such a change. It's a queuing process. You might go to Tesco in Roselawn and discover there's 2 machines, but there's 7 people in front of you trying to return their bottles. And they might have 20 bottles, because nobody's going to go up for 4 bottles. They'll usually have about 30 of them, and every one of them takes about maybe 15, 20 seconds to scan.
Yeah.
So it's just an extra thing that wasn't there before, because it was so handy being able to just put the bottles in the green bin.
Of course.
I was one of those guys recycling my bottles.
Yeah.
This will certainly capture a few more bottles. Those people who bought the small 300ml bottles that just threw them away in the bin.
Yeah.
It'll capture them because it's going to cost them 15 cents. It'll hit them in the pocket. But certainly countries like the UK will certainly learn from our experience. But with something called the European Accessibility Act being law from June of 2025 next year, that's going to require all machines to be accessible. The problem is it doesn't retrospectively apply. It only applies for new installs and equipment that breaks down. But these machines aren't cheap. Like, these are 15 to 30 grand for shops.
Yeah.
And a lot of your local shops mightn't have the space for it. The small shops don't have the space. They've sought an exemption, and that's the problem, because you might think your local Spar will take the bottles back, and you can get a refund and maybe buy milk, but then you discover, sorry, we have an exemption, we didn't have the space. And it does take up a lot of space in shops to take the bottles back. But hopefully home delivery refund scheme, take backs, hopefully that might become a reality, but it's all just about creating awareness about it. But it will benefit so many people who have home delivery at the minute, but who don't want to have to take another trip down to the shop in their car, which isn't good for the environment unnecessarily, or God forbid having to cycle or walk or take 4 bus journeys just to return a pile of bottles. There just is no scheme at the minute to take that back. But hopefully it'll happen.
No, it sounds like a great idea, and like you said, there's already framework in other countries there that we can kind of use as a cheat sheet. You've brought in today a little dossier, a few pages of information. You've clearly done a lot of research, spent a lot of time on this. You said you're going to do your expose video and upload that to your website. What other things are you up to in the Voice for the Visually Impaired organisation? Yeah,
so I suppose it is all about accessibility. So another item we covered is talking ATM machines. So until last year, April 2023, Ulster Bank was the only company that had accessible ATM machines. So you can stick a headphone jack in and it'll say voice guidance activated. Please enter your PIN number, press 1 for cash withdrawal, 2 for PIN change, 3 for statement. And you can withdraw money, and it would say for €10 press 1, for €20 press 2, etc. For a custom amount press 8, and you could type in €360, and it tells you where the card reader is, where the money is located at 6 o'clock, etc. But when they left the Republic of Ireland market last year, it all went silent. We had to get somebody else to help us withdraw money from the wall. But great news is we chased the 3 remaining banks, Bank of Ireland, AIB and Permanent TSB. And Permanent TSB rolled out a test in O'Connell Street and Grafton Street in March. That proved to be successful, and they've rolled it out to all their machines only 2 weeks ago. So from the 1st of April, all Permanent TSB machines have a headphone jack. 3 of them in the Blanchardstown Centre here. So if one of them is being used, you've got another 2. Plug in your headphone jack. You can withdraw money independently, or you can change your PIN if the PIN you have is an awkward one and you want to pick a more suitable one to remember. So that's the kind of stuff. Other stuff we'd be doing would be just highlighting dangers, maybe with the council, to do with metal cycle stands at the curb edge and how they can kind of trip over blind people. But it's not all about complaining or moaning. You have to show them best practice as well, because just on Main Street, Blanchardstown, you have former car parking space, that now accommodates 14 bicycles on the road, so it's not a trip hazard. So when you do highlight things, highlight Gold Star. Always give them a pat on the back to show this is where you've done it really well. Can you make that the norm elsewhere? Because Fingal is a big place. It's not just Dublin 15, it's Howth, it's Sutton, Baldoyle, Rush, Dublin Airport, Swords,
Sure.
These things get rolled out all over the place. They do cause accidents. A blind person can go under one of these, hit their knee or waist off it and fall back, and you don't want those things happening. You want to kind of keep our streets clear. So it's just kind of obstacles that are on the road, and just things like driver behaviour. I used to be a driver myself 17 years ago when I could see. It's all about encouraging people not to park vans and cars on the footpath, because that affects everyone. Parents with buggies, that could be a young child getting around the corner who could get knocked down by an e-scooter. So we're just trying to create awareness on safe parking, and just things also to do with e-scooters coming down the line in a few months. I think there'll be higher scooters from July, and we're terrified of these, and we just want to make sure that these are on the roads, and maybe like Germany, they would have reg plates or rules of the road tests before people actually start whizzing around with their 100 minutes prepaid scooters over 6 months.
Absolutely.
We just want to make sure they're not running through lights, because not just people with visual impairments, it could be anybody could be splattered by one of these. The acceleration is so good. They've got 350 watt motors. Some of them are even faster than that. And it's all about just proper etiquette, rules of the road. And hopefully, I know our schemes won't have reg plates like France and Germany and Spain, but that can happen. All these scooters all have a mudguard and a place for a reg plate. So this is coming down the line. This is micro-mobility. This will be somebody having an app and discovering, I've got 100 minutes left. Your nearest scooter is outside the bus stop. I want to cycle it for 3 minutes. But the problem is, I don't want people stopping these in the middle of the footpath with a kickstand. I want to ensure that the council insist that these are tied to bike stands, that they're not left in the middle of footpaths or get blown over after a storm or a bit of wind, because it's going to be a trip hazard for everyone. So that's the kind of stuff, just making the world a safer place for everyone. And if that happens to be blind and partially sighted people, and if other people can benefit from our advocacy as well, it's win-win in the long run.
Well, it's brilliant and important, understated work that you do, obviously, and you clearly know a lot about it and care very much about it. Thanks very much for coming on, and hopefully you'll be back. You've got an afternoon show?
Saturdays. So I've a programme. It's actually 4 years old now. Dance Party Zone, Le Couple Foc Las Gaeilge. It's a bilingual show. It plays the latest dance music and remixes. I do all the editing. It's a one-man show. I do it all myself. I've little tasters and all. And it did start off 4 years ago as a Seachtain na Gaeilge project for the crack to see could I do it in Irish, and it's stuck 4 years later. So that's Saturday night, 8 o'clock on 92.5 Phoenix FM.
Brilliant. So if you want to hear more from Barry, that's where you can find him.